fucking hard to focus a camera when you have shit eyesight in the first place. Hi! It's been a while since I've done this. Let's see if I still got the stuff. Yeah, the awkwardness is still there. So, I went out and did something super compulsive, because that's the best way to spend your money, and I got my tongue split about 2.5, 3 weeks ago by Luna Cobra out in Mom's Tattoo. He was touring and this was his first stop after the APP conference. And so just right off the bat, just fucking frequently asked questions that are just annoying or, you know, I just need to answer. 1, yes, it hurt a lot. I would not recommend this kind of pain to any normal human being. I'm frankly surprised that I survived it myself. 2, no, I can't really move it yet. That requires a lot of practice. Like, even the head piercer at the shop who was assisting with the procedure, he's had his tongue split for years and even he can't really move it because he didn't practice. So I'm trying to, but I'm lazy, and we'll just see how that goes. And then 3, last but certainly the most prominent, I don't know if head feels any better, because I don't have a dick, and even if I did, I could not suck it. And no, you can't find out. Like, holy fuck. You have no idea. Just like the innumerable amount of messages that I've received about that. It's so frustrating. Anyway, back on to like the actual... So when I had gone to see Luna Cobra, or Howie, or... It's weird calling him Luna Cobra because I'm like Moon Snake. So when I went to go meet Howie, I had every intention to go in there to get my earlobe scalpeled and get them redirected because, I don't know, it bothers me. Too much tissue here, not enough tissue here. And so I proposed the idea to him and he looked at my earlobes and he said, you don't need it. Like, your earlobes are pretty much perfect. They're like, the placement's fine. And I guess it's just like a weird thing that I feel about my body, but I am just really self-conscious about the placement of my piercings. So, you know, whatever. He said that he would do it if I, you know, asked him to, but I don't know. If he wasn't like all for it, then I wouldn't want to make him do it, you know? And so I'd already put in a $100 deposit for a procedure, so I had to figure out something to do. And so I was thinking about it, I'm like, let's get my tongue split. Why not? The idea of a tongue split has always been appealing to me for years, you know, ever since like my childhood, ever since I first saw it. And so, hey, we did it. And that is not a pain that I will ever forget. So the first step in all of this, after they had sat me down, like, you know, mentally prepared me for what was about to come, is they marked my tongue like any sort of like piercing or tattoo or anything as it generally would go. So they had 2 clamps they used to clamp down either side of my tongue. The very first thing that they did was cut my tongue frenulum, because my frenulum was pretty prominent, and I was actually really excited about that because I've been wanting my tongue frenulum cut for years because it's just been frustrating the fuck out of me. And then they did the split. And I tried to not remember that part of the experience. And I forgot that he also put sutures in, which is probably really important, which were removed 5 days after the procedure. And honestly, the sutures were probably the most painful part, especially after the swelling started going down, because when it was swollen, everything hurt. But once the swelling was down and started like forming new skin, then the sutures would just get in the way and they would press up against like the flesh and it would just hurt really bad. So when I got those removed, it was such a huge relief. I paid him my money and went home bloody, in tears, and just hating my life. And so for the aftercare of the procedure, Howie told me that I should not eat spicy food, hot food in terms of temperature, or any sort of carbonated sodas, anything with acid, just things that would normally irritate like an open wound. Don't do that. And of course sea salt rinses, because that's the bee's knees for any sort of modification, I guess. And actually, I would say that the experience, not the actual procedure, but afterward, was very comparable to getting your wisdom teeth removed, because I had just gotten my wisdom teeth pulled like almost exactly a month beforehand. It was a lot of swelling, a lot of pain. I could not talk like at all, because with my wisdom teeth I could talk, but it was just really difficult because of like, you know, cheeks and stuff, but this is your tongue, and that's pretty useful for speech. And the artist told me that the first day is always the worst day, and it really was. So when I got home, I still had some of the painkillers from getting my wisdom teeth removed, and so I used some of those, and it helped, but it did not help nearly as much as it did with my wisdom teeth because the pain was just so immense. And that night, sleeping was like the hardest fucking thing for me to do because it was still bleeding pretty profusely, and so whenever I would lay down or something, well, what else would you do when you're sleeping? The blood would like, seep back into the back of my throat, and it would like start pooling up, and I would just like wake up and just like in a jolt, choking on my own blood, and it was pretty fucking horrific. But definitely the biggest mistake that I made was just not eating. Because the only meal I had, like, before the procedure was, like, a burger, like, 4 hours beforehand. And so by the time I got there, like, I definitely should have eaten something else. Because the next day, I just did not want to get out of bed. I was so miserable. I just hated my life so much. And it got to the point where it was maybe, like, 2 or 3 p.m. and a full like 24 hours had gone by, and I was just so dizzy and so woozy, and I had like zero motor functions to the point where when I was like grasping all of the, well, I can't really grasp a wall, but you know what I mean, where I was like leaning up against everything that I could as I was trying to go downstairs to the kitchen. I fell down the stairs, and I was just like, what the fuck, like what do I do? So I kind of just stayed there for a little bit and just like slowly inched my way down like the second set of stairs, and I got in front of the refrigerator, opened it, and just like laid on the floor, like just so defeated and sad because we didn't have any yogurt or any soft foods at all, and I was just so devastated, and I thought I was gonna just pass out and die. Eventually I did find something to eat. I found like some raspberries that I ripped apart into small pieces and shoved back into my molars because I couldn't put it on my tongue because that would just be horrible. And I tried chewing, it was really, really difficult, so I ended up just swallowing the pieces whole, but even in eating a couple, I felt a lot better. Definitely, if you get any sort of like heavy procedure like that, like be sure to eat something because the blood loss, or even like if you don't have that amount of blood loss, like you need something to keep your blood sugars up and to keep you alive. After I was able to eat food, I found like these stronger painkillers that my mom had gotten for me, but that was at the end of my wisdom teeth pain, so I didn't need to take them. And so I found them and I took them, but they weren't painkillers, they were like sleeping pills to just like knock me out like immediately. And so I took like 3 of those without knowing, like, after I would like wake up every time, and I was like, why am I so sleepy? Like this is more than what I would normally nap. And it turns out, because I'm not the one who picked up the pills, my mom was, I didn't know about any of the side effects. Those pills you weren't supposed to take with dairy, and the only thing I could eat was yogurt. So I threw up maybe like 3 or 4 times, and it was so horrible. Stomach acid and fresh wounds. No, don't do it. As for a lisp or any sort of speech impediments, it was very, very difficult to understand me for the first week after I had the procedure done. At the time of the procedure, I was working at Chipotle. I've since quit because let's not get into that. And in working at Chipotle, like, I have to talk to customers constantly. I was usually the first person that they would see when they walk into the door. And so I couldn't do that, and so my manager was really angry because I literally just could not talk. Like, it was just a huge strain on like my mouth for me. After the initial swelling started going down, I was able to talk more comprehensively, but even now, I still sort of have a lisp when I say my D's and T's. My S's are fine, it's just those 2 letters, which is kind of frustrating. And I don't really know what else I can say about this whole contraption. I very, very, very much enjoyed. It is my favorite modification. I feel very happy that I made this decision. People always ask me, well, what about in like 10 years if you hate it? If I hate it, so the fuck what? It's like, I'm gonna have to like live with it, and I really don't see myself hating my tongue split in 10 years or in any point in time, because it just feels so natural and so right to me. And like I said before, I had been thinking about getting my tongue split for so many years, but I never expected it to be so soon. I was thinking maybe like in my early 20s or late 20s or somewhere with a 2 in it. And the fact that I did it now and kind of got it out of the way, like it feels good to have a more extreme mod, I'm a special snowflake and all that. But really, I feel more me with this tongue split, and I could not be happier with it. The one downside to it, however, that I'm just now remembering, because I've just gotten so used to it, is that I guess from all the trauma, like, something happened to where the tips of my tongues, I can't really feel anymore. It kind of feels like when you burn your tongue and it gets numb and you just can't feel it. It feels like just some random object in your mouth. That's how it feels. And at first I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, but it's honestly not too big of a deal. I can still taste fine. It has not affected any sort of like my daily tongue existing routine, so it's not something I care about. And I'm sure at one point the feeling will come back, as any other sort of traumatic thing might happen. Like when I was working at Chipotle, like my first week there, I put a tortilla on the grill, and I also placed my the flesh of my middle finger onto the grill as well, and it burned it pretty bad. And I could not feel anything in my in the tip of my middle finger, and now it still feels numb, but I can feel now, but it's slowly like regaining its nerves. And the point of that is like it'll happen to my tongue probably as well, because I'm sure people will say, oh well, he fucked up, like, you know, it's a huge deal. It's really not a big deal. I'm sure I'm forgetting to say something in this, but whatever, haven't made a video in like 5 months, an actual video in like 5 months. My last tongue stretching things doesn't matter. Especially doesn't matter now that this whole thing happened. Also, people have been talking about like regrowth and stuff, and a lot of people have said, well, why didn't you just stretch your tongue piercing and then get it pierced or get it split from there? And that is what I had planned on doing for so many years, and that's why I was stretching my tongue piercing, and why I wanted to get my tongue frenulum cut so I can get a piercing further back and then stretch that, and then, like, you know, that whole process. And the reason is because when I was talking to Howie about the tongue split, I had at first only wanted to get my tongue frenulum cut, and he asked why. And so I gave him that reasoning, and he said, honestly, it doesn't make much of a difference. There have been multiple, like, people, not really a study, but, you know, just like noticing what happened with people who did do that tongue stretching method as opposed to people who just got a straight cut. And he said there wasn't much of a difference in regrowth. So I'm like, I'll trust him, you know, it's like, this is what he does for a living. So I did it, and I did get a lot more regrowth than I was expecting, maybe like a 1/4 inch or so, but you know, whatever. I'm not planning on getting it resplit because I really don't want to have to do all that again. Although, you know, while it's healing, you are able to reopen the wound yourself, and he suggested just like taking like tissues in your in between your fingers and just pulling it apart. And I kind of tried doing that. I was just moving either side of my tongue apart to where like blood started coming out, and it just was too scary. So I'm like, no, I'm really squeamish for the type of stuff I'm into. It doesn't make any sense. But, you know, the regrowth is not something that I'm particularly like in hatred with. I would prefer if it didn't regrow at all, as I'm sure most people would, but I think it ended up fine. So yeah, if you have any other questions, definitely feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'll really appreciate it. And I said the commenting thing, and you can subscribe for some reason if you want to. I feel so sorry for my subscribers, especially when I get like new subscribers like within like the 20 years in between my videos. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm doing the best I can, and by that I mean just taking a lot of naps and playing a lot of video games. So yeah, other than that, I have nothing else to say. I'm sure you're tired of my stupid face at this point, and my stupid voice, and my inability to hold a conversation with nobody. So, bye.